I was not, in fact, the singular man.
I have received multiple rewards from...
All rise for the honorable space. Thanks everybody for coming to today's court case. It is the 45E versus J-Rod. The 45E has accused J-Rod of the following: sued him of stolen valor, harassment, libel, disturbing the peace, high treason, dereliction of duty, willfully refused to perform his duties, and also accusing him of being a sexual deviant. So at this point,
I believe the term is cuck.
At
Correct,
this
the term is,
time,
in fact, cuck.
J-Rod, how do you plead?
Is that an admission of guilt?
Not guilty on all charges.
Quiet. J-Rod, how do you plead? Oh, not guilty. Okay, sorry. At this point, we're going to go into opening statement. Each side will be given a 5-minute period to do open statements. They are not required to do the full 5 minutes, but they are limited to 5 minutes. You are allowed to walk around a bit as you're giving statements. Jury, please don't move. J-Rod, you'll get to do your first opening statement.
Gentlemen, I have been charged with stolen valor, harassment, libel, disturbing the peace, high treason, dereliction of duty, and willfully refusing to perform his duties, as well as possibly being a cock. Gentlemen, these charges are false, and I intend to refute them all one by one. The easiest refute is libel and harassment, as at no point in the chat did I state anything to the 45E in a derogatory manner, as I respect them enough to not cause a fuss and deliver or deter possible recruits, as the definition of libel does apply. Rather, when an issue arose, I jumped into the Discord and talked to them personally, and then talked to their two leaders after the fact, rather than causing a fuss in the chat. One of them that I talked to, Major Italian Turtle, I consider to be an acquaintance, and the latter a good friend.
Court security, could you please remove this chirp from the premises? He is disturbing the court. You may continue.
The argument for stolen valor is null and void because while I was not in control of all the Prussian forces, I was in command of my line of Whitecoats, which will be made evidence with evidence that I have. The dereliction of duty, high treason, and willfully refusing to perform duties all hinge on the presumption that I had committed stolen valor. After all, if I was an officer, then I would not be disobeying orders I would be giving them, which I in fact was. Once I present my evidence that the stolen valor charge is debased, then my actions to form a line and shoot the enemy were not in violation of any order. Rather, they were the orders given by me to fight the enemy as I saw fit. The call to charge was not given by me, and thus was not an order told to me, and even if it was an order by a fellow officer, it is no responsibility of mine to follow an equal's orders, and there is no precedent for such activity. Now, finally, to refute the most serious charge, the possible charge that I am cuck, I will explain exactly and plainly that I am single and lonely, and to be a cuck, one must have been in a serious romantic relationship in the first place, and me, my forever alone ass, has in fact never been in a serious relationship, so I cannot be a cuck.
Security, remove that man.
And so we will present this all through the case of this trial.
Rifleman on the top.
The defense rests.
Alright. Prosecution, you may give your opening statement.
Hello, everybody. I am going to read out my full titles and full name for you guys here. My official name is the former Lord of Conan, former Colonel of the French Grand Army, Justice of the Holdfast Supreme Court, lawyer, former NCO of Blakefish, 45E Empress Dragoons Corporal, formerly Skipper of the Antilles, Vice President of the Healy Army, Legion de Shaquille O'Neal recipient of Perfect Names Presidential Medal of Honor, Raccoon in Hearing, overall huge Shaq fan, Stu, son of Stu the 19th, son of Stuart, Stu the 18th, descendant of Stuart, Stu, son of Emperor Ahua of France and Greater French Holdings. Now I'm going to continue with the rest of my speech here. So I am the lead prosecutor here for the 45E today. I'm joined by Taylor and Chet as my co-prosecutors here. I would like to start off by apologizing for earlier pushing back the case today, as I had family matters to attend to. Now, for the case at hand, I would actually like to bring attention that the charges that we are trying to indict Mr. Rod here today are going to be slightly different. We're going to be charging him on the dereliction of duty, stolen valor, and being a cook. Mr. Rod here has clearly broken the law of the land and has harmed many individuals in his actions. And I think that will be very clear today in the evidence that you will see, and it will be reasonable, or there's evidence beyond a reasonable doubt Mr. Rod here has committed the crimes that he's being indicted on. And I don't think anybody here at the end of this court case will be able to deny that fact. And I'm done.
All right. At this time, the prosecution may bring forward a witness if they would.
We call 45E Major Italian Turtle to the stand.
All right, Turtle, up to the stand, please.
So, can you tell me the events that led up to the charge that happened on that line battle on that fateful day?
I can.
All right,
It started as a quite an odd line battle with flags flying everywhere, crowd rushing forward. What I then remember is a quote by J-Rod specifically saying to "Get them, boys." We then charged at the cowardly British and their lines as they shot at us. When he made the decision to have the Whitecoats in his line form to his right, as me and my brothers, not only my brothers,
Stay
but the
with me,
26,
Turtle. Stay with me.
but the 26 and the other public players in the line. He then had us charge directly at them, shooting at us, while his line sat in the back and watched us all die.
Okay. Now, can you tell me, Mr. Turtle, was Mr. J-Rod wearing an officer's uniform? Or an officer himself? During this
I don't
line?
believe so.
You don't believe so? Okay. Did he deny, or did he refuse to carry out the order that was initially called?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Turtle. You may have a seat.
The
Wait.
Turtle, get back up there.
Never mind. Go back
Defense-
up. Get back up there. My bad.
Cross-examine.
All right. Defense, you may cross.
Good afternoon, Mr. Turtle.
Oh Lord, the humanity.
All right,
afternoon.
first off, how are you doing? Are you all right?
I'm okay. Just a little shaken.
I understand. I understand. Now, can you please address this court as a whole and explain to them fully? Was myself, or my client rather, was he? Can you confirm 100% not wearing an officer uniform, or were you not paying attention?
It's a little bit blurry, but I believe he was not wearing an
Okay,
officer
so
uniform.
you believe he was not. Okay, that's fair. That's understandable. It was a moment of crisis. You might not have been able to see it. If I said instead that he was, would you be 100% averse to that in your brain?
No.
No, you would not. Okay. I want to ask you a question. Did you hear anyone else give an actual order to charge?
I did.
Okay, who did you hear?
I do not recall.
Cannot recall. But can you recognize that it was not J-Rod's voice?
Yes.
Okay. Can you acknowledge? Do you acknowledge that the order that was said to line to my right and fire? Can you acknowledge that that was J-Rod? Or you can. You can. Okay. Now let me ask you a question. At the point that you had started the charge, where was the enemy specifically?
I would say roughly around 40 yards.
When you got closer, say 20 yards, was the enemy still holding steady, or were they doing some sort of movement?
They were either charging, breaking, or standing.
They were.
It's a combination of both.
If I said that they were breaking, does that make sense for the situation?
It
We were
does.
getting close. Okay. In that situation, when the enemy is running away, could you understand if a person would be thinking to shoot at an enemy escaping? Does that seem like a reasonable thing to do?
From the distance that the unit was charging, no.
No, not at the distance the unit was charging. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Once again, I just want to make sure. Are you okay? Are you all right?
I'm okay.
Okay. All right. Well, then, in the interest to not further distress any of our witnesses, the defense will rest on that.
All right. At this time, you can maybe see it, Turtle. At this time, the defense can call their first witness.
Defense calls Mr. Sparky, aka Spark in the Dark, to the stand. Gentlemen of the court, I just want to make this aside important. Sparky is in fact lame. He cannot speak. However, I will interpret. Mr. Sparky,
Objection.
were you there at the day of the...
Objection.
What's the objection?
If the man can't talk and he is interpreting, I don't like that.
Yeah, we need.
Very well. I will understand his lame speak. I will translate.
The objection's overruled. He can type and text chat as long as he keeps it.
Indeed. Mr. Sparky, were you present at the line battle in question?
Sit down, Stu.
It's a bit slow, eh?
You are required to answer the question, Sparky. Text.
Sparky, were you at the line battle in question? Yes. Okay.
Security! Security!
We would like to call 45E Father Crunch. Are you in fact underage?
I am in fact underage.
Did he say he wait, hold on, what?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
How many times have you and J-Rod, the defendant, met before? Under these sexual relations?
We have met many times on the weekends. For years that I found out under my own safety here, Courthouse. You can call me Father Crunch.
Can you remember exactly when these relationships were?
Of course, I can remember these relationships. Back when
Can you
the
please speak up, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
In Discord, Crunch, in Discord.
The dates of this incident, perhaps the most recent incident?
I feel like the most recent incident was a recent line battle. I felt violated by that, but the most latest, first time this has happened was back when the Whitecoats were very, very early in their stage of a regiment. He had me train his troops, but after that, I had sexual favors.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going to need to ask you the date specifically of when that was.
I cannot say the dates because I do not remember the dates.
Cannot state the date. How? Okay. Well, the issue at hand is that these charges are not of a nature that it directly pertains to this line battle. So I'm going to ask you again about this cuckage. Do you believe that your relationship was close enough with J-Rod or my client to warrant a actual serious sexual relationship, or do you believe it was just a fling?
It was a serious, deep sexual relationship.
That's certainly false. But in your mind, you believe that it's true.
It was very vulgar and very rough.
Interesting. Could you say for certain that this was a daddy I love him situation that you have with J-Rod?
This was a sugar daddy and daddy I love him relationship.
Interesting. What sort of benefits did you receive from this sugar daddy relationship?
I have received sorry, that is sorry, I lost mine. But anyways, I have received I have received multiple rewards from J-Rod, including money and fame and clout.
Indeed, indeed. Do you believe that these are commensurate with a voluntary sexual transaction?
Sorry, I'm 15 years old. I don't speak
Offense will rest.
Gas.
You can go sit down now, crap.
Gas, did
Oh
you?
crap, misclick.
Indeed. So, the situation that pertained itself was on this most recent Wednesday the 13th? 13th, thank you. That night, we were playing a game of Holdfast Nations at War. Particularly this third round in which it was a snow biome map. I spawned in as an officer, and a number of my other men spawned in, not as flag bearer classes or as musicians, but as separate classes. A couple Freikorps, a couple one or two musicians, and then a couple of grenadiers. These men were then assaulted by a number of flag bearers bearing the 45E, and were necessary to keep their safety. I said, let us go pick up flags and attempt to blend in with the crowd so that way we might be able to escape this group. We then picked up flags, and you will see in, later on evidence that there is, in fact, multiple shots of other people other than flag bearers holding flags, of which are part of my line. And then we started moving out towards the enemy as a large group. I was not in front of this group. I did not know who was leading this group. I was actually out to the side, on the right side, and in that picture that has been thrown out as evidence, you see that. But since that's thrown out, I will ignore that. So I was moving out in a line. I heard a number of people make a number of calls and mockery and whatnot, and in which case I then said, join these stupid Prussian regiments. We do stupid, redacted, like this all the time. This was not, in fact, to actually recruit people. This was to deter people because I was, frankly, a little bit salty. We then engaged in the enemy near the fallen tree, and upon seeing that the enemy was closing the distance and was preparing to charge, in an effort to defend my brothers who were already charging because an order had already been given to charge, I formed my lineup to my right, out to the left side of the line to attempt to get shots on the enemy, which we did, and started sending the enemy running back. The other people in the group then pursued the enemy, whilst I kept my line holding where it was, and then moved it out to the right side of the fallen tree to get better shots at the other people. And in essence, I was not, in fact, informed of any sort of charge order, and I heard charge, but I could not identify if it was an officer or not. And seeing as how I was an officer as well, there was no reason for me to make that charge. I instead made the call to hold and fire. Then afterwards, I was proceeded to be assaulted in chat for being a coward and for being a fool, of which you might be able to argue, but I was not, in fact, stolen valor or not an officer class. And in fact, I talked in the officer class afterwards, and they said they were kicking me out of the officer club, but I was, in fact, still in the officer club at the time of the incident, so therefore I was, in fact, still an officer. Thank you. That is my time. Defense West.
Shut the fuck up!
Alright. At this time, the jury has presented to me their valid vote. Due to the fact that they are Pfeifers, we will not grant them the right to speak on their behalf, so I will speak for them.
That's good.
That's kind of gay.
In-
We're oppressed.
In the
Should have done that. His vote doesn't count now.
In the matter of 45E versus J-Rod, the jury has voted 3-0 that he is guilty on the charges of cowardice and
We voted both ways.
Stu,
Wrong.
legal security, please take Stu into detainment to the back room, please. Please take Stu to the back room.
This is
He's been.
bullshit.
Please let me finish. He's been found guilty on 2 of the charges. He's only been found guilty on 2 of the charges of sexual immorality and of cowardice. He's been found innocent on all of the charges. We will now be transitioning to the... Stu's been found in contempt of the court. He will be reprimanded to execute by firing.
There is a poem, in fact.
Alright. Alright.
Would you like me to recite it to the crowd?
Yes, yes.
Okay. This is a list of the sexual actions. Eat me, beat me, bite me, blow me, suck me, fuck me, very slowly. If you kiss me, don't be sassy. Use your tongue and make it nasty. Thank you.
And don't forget the 6-9.
Thank you, you may be seated.
That's
At this time, guys, quiet down, please. For the first charge of cowardice, I'm hereby and sentence you to admit that you are a coward.
In the particular
in
instance
that
of which we are
instance, in that
discussing,
instance.
yes,
In that instant.
I, J-Rod, was in fact a coward.
And
Not happen again.
in the mention, in the case of the sexual immorality, which you have been found guilty, you are hereby ordered to admit to your sexual crimes, and you are to remain 50 meters from Crunch at all times.
Yo, I smacked that fat ass.
At this time, I'd like to thank the jury for their service. They may now go take a seat. At this time,
My legs are sore.
we would like to thank everybody for coming to this court case. In exchange for that, I'd like that everybody to please come line up behind me, the officer, as I'm walking up. Just start forming a single file line.
The end
Shut
of
the
all
fuck up.
things.
So far, I'm scared.
At this time,
Next to a different person.
fire. Thanks everybody for coming to this. At this time, the court case is over. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. If you would like to see more court cases, please file court cases.